Instead of representing the people of Minnesota or any city or state, each delegation and the National Convention would be altered by law to represent some new concrete composition, which would include those it was thought had been unfairly excluded. Then we would be perfect, was the idea. America didn't even know at the time just who, or rather what kinds of people, would be injected into the new party. The list started with women, of course, the majority of the population, and then went down the line, race, age, and eventually came to include the disabled and finally new kinds of sexual identities. We still don't know all of those kinds. Though no one could see it at the time, and I was out of the country as a very young man, those rules were the seeds of a great transformation, and today, starkly visible at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia. The change is profound, and the change is not good, because it has fatally distracted us as people from becoming better people, rather than just choose a new recipe for self-governance. Our government can become better as we become better people. This democratic system, as we found out with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, is prone to abuse with severe consequences.